In my previous life, my wife strongly recommended her first love, Chamo, to join the company. She swore he would take the company to the next level. What I never expected was that the two of them had already been secretly colluding behind my back, scheming to take away the career I had worked so hard to build. Later, due to an accident, I was involved in a car crash and died on the spot. My soul drifted in the air, and I saw that despicable couple embracing in front of my corpse. Fortunately, I was reborn. Reborn on the day Chinemo entered the company. Just as I was thinking about how to deal with them, I suddenly heard the system sound bound to my wife. The harsh screech of brakes reached my ears, and as if by reflex, the bone-deep pain seemed to wash over my entire body once again. I snapped my eyes open, only to find myself in a familiar office. Sunlight streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm hue on the carpet beneath my feet. Tiny specks of dust floated in the light and shadow, mingling with my wife's incessant chatter. I didn't take in a single word. I couldn't help but shift uncomfortably, realizing my back was drenched in cold sweat. The memory of that car accident was so vivid, the blinding high beams of the truck, the violent impact. Lin Yu's indifferent gaze. Honey, what do you think? A familiar voice came through. I looked up and saw Lin Yu standing excitedly by my desk. She was wearing a beige dress today, accentuating her stunning waistline. Her long hair cascaded smoothly over her shoulders, and her makeup was impeccably flawless. In the past, I believed that marrying Lin Yu was the greatest blessing of my life. No, I only feel disgust. It was that face, showing an expression I had never seen before. Just as I was dying, at that moment, my soul floated in the air, watching her throw herself into Chin Mo's arms, hearing her say, "Finally, no more pretending. Chimo, we'll be together forever from now on." Chimo gently kissed my wife's forehead, his face beaming with the excitement of a successful scheme. From today onwards, Chi Shua's company is mine. I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails nearly dug into my flesh, my entire being seemingly engulfed in rage. In my past life, it was on this very day that Lin Yu strongly recommended Chinemo to join the company, and I foolishly agreed. Little did I know, this was the beginning of my nightmare. After Chinemo joined the company, he secretly won over many core employees and set traps for me on several major projects, causing me to be targeted at every turn during the shareholders' meeting. Later, they even united everyone to isolate me and forced me to sell my shares at a low price. Who would have thought he was actually the biggest beneficiary behind the scenes? Oh, honey. Lin Yu's voice carried a hint of concern. You don't look so good. Did you not rest well last night? I took a deep breath and forced a somewhat natural smile onto my face. I'm fine. Maybe I've just been too tired lately. My gaze fell on the man behind her. Chenemo was wearing a well-tailored suit, with a perfectly appropriate smile on his face. You must be Chimo, right? I stood up, walked around the desk, and approached them. Yes, Chinemo was my college classmate, just returned from studying abroad. There was a hint of barely noticeable pride in Lin Yu's tone. She was overjoyed. If I hadn't been there, she would probably have already thrown herself into his arms. Honey, Chinemo is very talented. I think he's perfect for the position of investment department director. I studied Chinemo. He truly had a handsome appearance, with deep features and a tall, upright figure. No wonder, Lin, you couldn't stop thinking about him. I recall that in my past life, Assistant Xiaolu once said they were in the private office of the investment department. But back then, I was so deeply in love with my wife that I couldn't believe she would cheat. In this life, I must make that pair of scumbags pay the price. After thinking for a moment, I decided not to tip them off first. Let Chinmo join the company, and then I'll figure out a way to deal with them. Mr. Chen is indeed very capable, I said with a smile. However, the position of investment director is very important, and we need to observe for a while longer. How about starting as a manager first? I noticed Lin Yu's eyelashes flutter slightly, a habitual gesture of hers when she's nervous. She immediately frowned. Chisho, what do you mean? How could someone as outstanding as Chen Mo start as a manager? In her past life, she was the same, defending Chen Mo in front of me without any restraint. Yet I was blind enough to notice nothing at all. Chen Mo's smile froze for a brief moment but quickly returned to normal. He seemed to recall something and shot a meaningful glance at my wife. Of course. No problem. I understand the company's caution. Chen Mo agreed obediently just like that. I was pondering what to do next when I suddenly heard a voice inside my mind. Target character's affection level decreased. Host Lin, you currently holds 95 affection points. Warning. If the affection level continues to drop, Host Lin, you will face punishment. When the affection level reaches 0, the host will be eliminated by the system. Hearing this emotionless statement, I couldn't help but feel a jolt of shock. At the same time, I could clearly see my wife's face turn pale. She looked uneasily at Chen Mo, as if she wanted to say something but held back. Having been reborn, I quickly accepted this fact. It seemed my wife had bound herself to some kind of system. Then it settled. I turned and walked back to my desk. Linyu, please take Mr. Chen to the HR department to complete his onboarding. As the head of the company's human resources department, Linyu was the most suitable person to accompany Chen Mo for his onboarding. For now, I can't reveal my intentions too clearly, so I'll let that shameless couple continue to live on for a while. After they left, I immediately dialed a number. Old Joe, help me look into something. I hung up the phone and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. From the 28th floor, I had a panoramic view of the entire city, the sunlight blindingly bright. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of the office, holding a personnel transfer document in my hand. This was the 3rd week since my rebirth, and everything was proceeding according to plan. Mr. Chen, here are the documents you requested. Old Joe pushed the door open and placed a stack of files on the desk. I turn around, my gaze falling on the topmost file. That's the file on Wang Ming, the deputy director of the marketing department. In my past life, this was the person who turned against me at a critical moment, leaving me in a passive position during the shareholders' meeting. Have you checked everything thoroughly? Chen Mo asked. Old Joe nodded. Wang Ming, Li Cheng, and Zhang Wei, these 3 have all been getting very close to Chen Mo recently. Especially Wang Ming, who played golf with Chen Mo last weekend and then went into a private room at a high-end hotel in the city together in the evening. It looked like they were discussing something. I let out a cold laugh, picked up a pen, and signed my name on the document. Notify HR to transfer Wang Ming to the branch office. As for Li Cheng and Zhang Wei, one will be in charge of logistics, and the other will manage the archives. Well, Old Joe hesitated. Wouldn't that be too sudden? After all, these people hold key positions. Making such a decision abruptly would make it obvious to anyone that I'm stripping them of their power. But if I don't act now, it will be too late later. I don't have much time to hesitate. Just do it. I put down my pen. Remember, move fast. The transfer needs to be completed before the end of today. After Old Joe left, I returned to my desk and turned on the computer. On the screen was an encrypted file containing all the leverage I had painstakingly gathered against the company's shareholders. In my past life, I would have disdained doing this. After all, I had no grudges with anyone, past or present, and there was no need to scheme against others. But in this life, I must prepare early to ensure the plan goes off without a hitch. Suddenly, the office door was gently pushed open. A faint scent of perfume drifted in, the light cherry blossom fragrance that Lin Yu loved the most. Ashua Lin Yu's voice was unnervingly gentle as she smiled at me, her peach blossom-like eyes seemingly about to drip with tenderness. In my past life, she never looked at me like this. This kind of gaze was only ever reserved for her first love. Chimo, I brewed some nourishing soup for you. You've been working hard lately, so you need to take better care of yourself. She wore a plain dress today, her long hair tied up, exuding an elegant demeanor. Just leave it there, I said indifferently. Lin Yu, however, walked straight over to him, placed the insulated lunchbox on the table. then leaned down and wrapped her arms around my neck. You've been too tired lately. It hurts me to see you like this. My body stiffened slightly as Lin Yu's warm breath brushed against my ear, carrying the scent of her perfume. All of this is so enchanting, yet so unfamiliar. I remembered the existence of the system. Since you want to put on a show, I'll play along to the end. Just then, I heard the system's notification sound once again. Ding. The host has taken the initiative to show goodwill. Target's favorability +1, current favorability 91. Lin Yu's breathing became noticeably quicker. She was very excited. It seemed that I was still the chi shua she could easily manipulate. Then, she reached out to massage my shoulders, still trying to increase my favorability. This is not for you to decide. I directly turned her down. What's wrong? Lin Yu asked with concern. Nothing. I pushed her away. I still have work to deal with. A flicker of disappointment passed through Lin Yu's eyes, but she quickly lifted a smile. Then I won't disturb you. Remember to drink the soup. She turned and left, and the system voice sounded once again. Warning. Target's affection level -2. Current affection level 89. Please note, host, if the affection level drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. Lin Yu's figure, halfway through her departure, suddenly froze. She awkwardly turned around and, with a shameless persistence, trotted back. Honey, just let me give you a massage. I've recently learned a new massage technique. It's really comfortable. I deliberately looked up at her, meaningfully. What? Have you already given someone a massage? Lin Yu trembled all over. Unable to conceal her panic at all, I focused my attention, using the methods I had learned during this time to control my fondness for Lin Yu. Warning. Target affection -3, current affection 86. Please note, host, if affection drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. Lin Yu became even more flustered, instantly extinguishing the anger that had just ignited in her eyes. All that remains is a deep, profound fear. No, not at all. Honey, you're joking. Lin Yu panicked like a frightened little rabbit. But she had been domineering and arrogant in front of me for so many years that her deliberately displayed humility and flattery were all so clumsy. I was giving my best friend a massage yesterday, and she said I was really good at it. So I specially wanted to give you one too. I could already imagine the scene of her serving Chimo stay calm. I told myself, to make this pair of scumbags pay. Now is not the time. Ding. The host clears up the misunderstanding. Target affection +1, current affection 87. Lin Yu's expression finally relaxed a bit. All right, we'll talk about it later. I was overjoyed inside, but kept my composure. You can leave now. I have urgent work that needs to be done immediately. Lin Yu had no choice but to leave reluctantly. After these past few weeks, I have become quite familiar with the system my wife is bound to. Whenever Lin Yu interacts with me, I can hear the system's notification sound. A shareholders' meeting will be held in 3 months, and the outcome will be determined by my affection level toward my wife, Lin Yu. If Lin Yu can raise my affection level above 80 before then, the system will manipulate the shareholders into removing me from my position. Coupled with the instigation of several senior executives that Chinamo had won over in the company, I was completely ousted from management. And once successful, what awaited me was an accidental car crash arranged by the system. By then, Lin Yu and Chinamo would acquire all my assets, and I would vanish from this world. Conversely, if the favorability level was too low, the system would punish Lin Yu. When the favorability drops to 0, Lin Yu, as the host, will be ruthlessly eliminated by the system. At the same time, she will take revenge on the system's beneficiary. The beneficiary is naturally Chimo, who took my place in a previous life. This is a gamble. Lin Yu is betting that my love for her will never waver. Clearly, she succeeded in my previous life. At that time, although I felt pressure at the company, I never imagined that my own wife was one of the instigators. Even at the moment of my death, my affection for her was probably still absurdly high. How ridiculous! In this life, Not only can I hear the system notifications bound to my wife, but through trial and error, I've also learned how to control my affection for Linyu. I couldn't help but smile. Before dealing with those two, I had to have some fun with them first. Because I had been systematically removing the senior executives that Chinemo had bribed in my previous life, his plan to win people over within the company and prepare to oppose me was not going smoothly. Although Chinemo was anxious, he also understood that Lin Yu's system was the most powerful weapon in determining the outcome. To deceive my wife and Chimo, I kept my favorability rating at around 90 during this period. This made the two of them gradually become more audacious in front of me. A few days later, the company team-building event arrived. Lin Yu, as the company's administrative leader, organized a mountain climbing activity. The night before, she spent a long time in the kitchen making a lot of the honey peach lime juice that Chinemo loved. The morning mist among the mountains had not yet dissipated when the company's bus had already stopped at the foot of the mountain. I stood at the front of the line, wearing a brand new mountaineering suit, with a gentle smile on my face. Dear colleagues, today is a great opportunity to strengthen our bonds. My gaze swept across the crowd. I hope everyone can help each other during the activity and successfully reach the summit. Suddenly, I saw Chinemo and my wife Lin Yu standing at the end of the line, whispering to each other as if they were the real couple. Some colleagues felt awkward and unconsciously kept their distance from them. Most of my colleagues were unfazed, with only a few casting sympathetic glances my way. It seems that the wife and Chinemo had been having quite a few secret rendezvous with the company just then. Lin Yu looked up and our eyes met, a hint of embarrassment spreading across her face. I calmly looked away, as if nothing had happened. It seems we need to give this pair of scumbags a warning. The company's hiking team quickly set off. Lin Yu, Chamo, and other company leaders led the team at the very front. Just as they reached the halfway point of the mountain, Lin Yu took out the peach and lime juice she had prepared in advance and handed it to Chinemo. The latter responded with a doting smile. The two deliberately slowed their pace, wanting to fall behind the group. At that moment, I suddenly coughed, deliberately putting on a pained expression. Lin Yu turned to me at the sound of my voice. Honey, what's wrong? I deliberately frowned. Chimo looked innocent. Brother Chi, are you upset because Lin Yu gave me the peach lime juice? Lin Yu frowned. In her past life, she would have lost her temper long ago. But now, constrained by the system, she had no choice but to patiently explain to me. Honey, Chinemo and I are just ordinary friends. My colleagues nearby cast glances at me, as if admiring the green hat on my head. I deliberately put on a look of complete ignorance. What are you talking about? I was just thirsty. Then I shook my water bottle. But there was no water left inside. Chinemo was clearly unhappy. During this period, due to the system, the two of them have restrained their behavior quite a bit. At least every time I was present. Lin Yu didn't dare to get too close to him. This made Chinemo wonder if Lin Yu was genuinely distancing herself from him. Warning: target affection -5, current affection 85. Host: please note that if affection drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. Lin Yu flinched as if pricked by a needle, directly snatched the cup from Chinmo's hand, and handed it to me. Honey, have some peach lime juice. It's very fresh. I took it contentedly and took a big gulp. Delicious. I deliberately said loudly. Yeah. Did you prepare this especially for me? Lin Yu forced a smile. Yes. I turn around to look at Chinmo and raise my thermos. Manager Chin, would you like a sip too? Chinmo's temples bulged with veins as he took a deep breath and forced a smile. No need. I brought my own water. In the corner of my eye, I saw Chinmo's face instantly turn ashen. He stared intently at the cup in my hand, his fists clenched so tightly they turned white. That look was like a beast whose prey had been taken away. Dang. The target is in a good mood. Affection +5, current affection level. 90 before Lin, you could even breathe a sigh of relief. Chinemo looked at her with a pitiful expression from behind and said, I'm thirsty too. I frowned slightly. controlling my mind to lower the favorability again. Warning. Target affection -5, current affection 85. Host. Please note that if affection drops below 50, a penalty mechanism will be activated. Warning. Target affection -5, current affection 80. Host. Please note that if affection drops below 50, a penalty mechanism will be activated. Drop 10 points directly to put some pressure on Linyu. Sure enough, Linyu shot Chinamo a fierce glare. Manager Chin, what does your thirst have to do with me? Serves you right. Chinmo's face turned pale and flushed, but he couldn't say anything. Linyu glared at Chinamo angrily, but when she turned to face me, her expression softened into a gentle smile. Honey, are you still thirsty? I still have a cup here. I nodded with satisfaction. No need now. If I get thirsty again, I'll let you know. Ding. Target is in a good mood. Target affection +5, current affection 85. Give her 5 points back as a reward. I put my arm around her shoulders and whispered in her ear. Come on, it's time to go. On the mountain path, Chinamo kept walking at the very front of the group, his pace so fast that the others couldn't keep up. I knew he was angry, but that was exactly the effect I wanted. My wife wanted to explain things to Chinamo, but with me by her side, she had no choice but to hold it in. I could sense my wife's distraction. The decline in the system's favorability was making her restless. So, taking the hint, I slowed my pace and moved to the middle of the group to chat with other colleagues, giving her and Chinamo a chance to get closer. Sure enough, my wife quickly took out the other cup of peach lime juice and handed it to Chinamo, her eyes full of ingratiation. Who would have thought that Chinamo took the water cup, discreetly poured something into it, and then handed it back to Linyu? After the two finished doing this, they unconsciously looked over at me. I, on the other hand, had already shifted my gaze elsewhere, pretending not to have noticed them. As we neared the mountaintop, Chinamo was clearly unbearably thirsty. I patted my wife on the shoulder. Manager Chin is this thirsty. Why don't you give him the other cup of peach and lime juice? As I spoke, I smiled apologetically. I was being petty just now. You two are old classmates. There's no need to let things get too tense. Linyu hesitated for a moment before pulling out the peach and lime juice and handing it to Chinmo. Chinmo stammered for a while. I'm not thirsty. You two keep it. I looked utterly disappointed. Chinmo, are you angry with me? If it really doesn't work, I can apologize to you. Okay. Warning. Target affection -15, current affection 70. Host. Please be aware that if affection drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. The honey peach lime juice in my wife's hand almost fell to the ground. It clearly has nothing to do with her. So why is the affection level still dropping? What a pity those two would never have dreamed that I could hear the system sounds. But his wife couldn't care less about that anymore and directly shoved the cup into Chinmo's hands. Manager Chin, it was my husband who helped you get into the company in the first place. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to throw a tantrum over a cup of peach lime juice? Chinamo had no way to explain himself. He never expected that I would give him the other cup of peach lime juice to drink. I'm really not thirsty. Warning. Target affection -5, current affection 65. Please be aware. Host. That if affection drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. Not drinking. There are plenty of people who will force you to drink. My wife lunged forward with an aggressive, intimidating demeanor. Chamo. Her eyes were red with anger. Don't be ungrateful. My husband Chi Shua is the company's CEO. Asking you to drink is a sign of respect. If you still refuse to show face, I'll tell you as the head of the HR department that you don't need to come to work tomorrow. Shinmo stared wide-eyed, speechless. Can't you understand human language? If you don't drink, pack your things and get out. Cho gritted his teeth. With so many colleagues from the company watching, he had no choice. Only after watching him drink the peach lime juice in his glass did I feel satisfied and continue leading everyone on the way. Before long, Shanmo's pace while climbing grew slower and slower. His expression was pained, and his forehead was covered in fine beads of sweat. Out Shinmo couldn't hold on any longer and plopped down onto the ground. I believe whatever he put in the juice wouldn't be enough to kill someone, after all. If he killed me, he'd be done for too. It was probably some powder that would cause a stomachache. I deliberately walked up to him and asked with concern, "Manager Chin, are you feeling unwell?" Cho gritted his teeth and shook his head. No. I nodded with satisfaction. Looks like you don't exercise enough. Hurry up and catch up with the group. We need to reach the summit on time. Chenamo shot a pleading look at Linyu, who snapped back impatiently. What are you looking at? If there's nothing wrong with you, get up now. Don't hold everyone back just because of you. Don't you understand team spirit? Chenamo stood up with a pale face and insisted on climbing to the top of the mountain with us. After reaching the summit, he could no longer hold on and collapsed. I very kindly called an ambulance for him. Once he was taken to the hospital and examined, it turned out to be acute appendicitis. The doctor sighed and said that if it hadn't been for the strenuous exercise, it wouldn't have gotten this bad. I was secretly thrilled, but on the surface, I still looked extremely sorrowful. In light of Manager Chin's noble spirit of sacrificing himself for the collective, let's establish a selfless dedication award for him at the year-end commendation ceremony. I instructed my wife beside me. Just give him a bonus of 200 yuan. Money is secondary. The main thing is for everyone to learn from Manager Chin's indomitable spirit. Later, my wife and her first love never dared to act so brazenly in front of me again. But that doesn't mean I would let them off the hook. She often used the excuse of working overtime on weekends to secretly meet with Chinmo. Especially when I was resting at home. They were up to some shady business in the meeting room. I'm afraid, Lin, you didn't want this either. During this time, by constantly adjusting the favorability level up and down, I've driven her somewhat neurotic. Whenever I show any sign of displeasure, my wife becomes extremely anxious. One night, I secretly looked through her phone. Chenamo was clearly questioning whether his wife wanted to come back to me. Helpless, she had no choice but to agree to meet Chenamo at the company for a secret rendezvous over the weekend. After gathering enough clues, I secretly followed her to the company one weekend morning. Sure enough, Lin Yu's car was heading in the direction of the company. She parked the car in the underground garage but didn't enter through the main entrance. Instead, she went around to the side door. I followed from a distance, watching her swipe her card to enter the elevator. The elevator stopped on the 10th floor, the same floor as Chinmo's office. I took another elevator to follow, just in time to see Lin Yu walking quickly toward the conference room. Chinmo was already waiting there. He was dressed very formally today, holding a bouquet of roses in his hand. Upon seeing Lin Yu, he immediately broke into a smile, reached out to pull her into the meeting room, and then locked the door behind him. Meanwhile, I entered the meeting room next door. To ensure privacy, the soundproofing in the meeting room was quite effective. I couldn't hear any movement inside, so I had to wait for 20 minutes before calling my wife. Sure enough, she didn't answer. I called again, but still no answer. Warning: target affection -20, current affection 63. Host: please note that if affection drops below 50, a penalty mechanism will be activated. At that moment, my wife immediately called. I held back my nausea and tried hard to adjust my emotions. Honey, my wife's tone was noticeably flustered, and she was panting heavily. I was in a meeting just now. What's the matter? I said calmly. In a hurry? My wife stammered for a moment. Yes, very much in a hurry. I chuckled and said, I heard from Dubai Way that you were disciplining your employees and even got physical earlier. My wife defended herself. No, that's not it. I was just. Dubai Way is my wife's close friend at the company. Afraid that I might become suspicious, my wife always claims she's working overtime with Dubai Way whenever she goes to the company on weekends. Unfortunately, in this life, under my coercion and bribery, Dubai Way has long become my informant. I spoke with a tone of suspicion, but Dubai Way said she saw it with her own eyes. Warning: target affection level -10, current affection level 53. Please note, host, If the affection level drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. The punishment mechanism has reached its breaking point. My wife let out a scream on the other end of the phone, followed by the sharp sound of a slap. With a sincere, tearful tone, her long-term submission to my control had made her somewhat neurotic. She said, "Yes, I was disciplining a new employee." Smack. Another resounding slap. The new employees nowadays are simply outrageous. I must discipline them properly. Then came a man's muffled groan. I was certain that there was no one else in that meeting room besides my wife and Chinemo. My wife pleaded with me, "Honey, you have to keep it a secret that I laid hands on the employees." She thought that would calm me down. Huh? Dream on. I immediately turned into a doting husband. Who dares to make my wife angry? How bold. Wife, give it to them hard. Don't worry. I'll take responsibility if anything happens. There was still no response from the other end of the phone. Can't bring yourself to do it. Looks like I have to push you a little. Warning. Target affection -5, current affection 48. Host. Please note that current affection is below 50. Penalty mechanism activated immediately. As soon as the system's voice finished its announcement, the sound of his wife's screams came through the phone. I'm not sure what the system's specific punishment mechanism is, but it sounds like my wife is in considerable pain. Honey, what's wrong? I said anxiously. Wait for me. I'll come to the company right now. Perhaps because my current affection score isn't too low. The punishment only lasted about a minute. My wife was panting heavily on the other end. That new employee just now refused to obey discipline and even fought back. Honey, you don't need to come. If I can't even manage a new employee, how can I help you run the company's HR work? Slap. Another loud slap. Go for it. Honey, I'll take care of any problems. Ding. Target is in a good mood. Target affection +5, current affection 53. No more punishment needed. Lynn, you could no longer care about anything else. Slap after slap rang out from the other end of the phone, occasionally accompanied by his wife's furious scolding. I told you to fight back. Who do you think you are? Just watch me beat you to death today. My husband said we have to teach you a lesson today. I was very satisfied and decided to throw her a little more goodwill. After all, a slap followed by a sweetener is the way to drag out the torment for this pair of scumbags. Ding. Target is in a good mood. Affection +10, current affection 63. Only after my wife had tired herself out from hitting me did I hang up the phone with satisfaction. On Monday, no so-called new employee who had supposedly suffered Lin Yu's violence came to hold me accountable. Instead, Chimo took a few days off, citing illness. When I saw him, the bruises on his face were still faintly visible, perhaps out of too much worry about the future. The two of them seemed to have secretly agreed there were no signs of contact between them for the following period. Lin Yu attended to me even more diligently, fulfilling all my demands. No matter how excessive or twisted the request, she accepted it without the slightest hesitation. As the day of the shareholders meeting approaches, my affection for her has once again returned to 90. I have to say, every single point of it was earned through my wife's hard work and sweat. On the day of the shareholders meeting, my wife cheered me on. Honey, after the meeting, let's go to the newly opened Western restaurant for dinner tonight. She could barely conceal her excited expression. After all, she was finally about to break free from my grasp. Meanwhile, Chinmo stood not far away, looking at me with equal anticipation. Oh, as the shareholders meeting concluded and the crowd gradually filed out, I returned to my office. At that moment, his wife Lin Yu and Chinmo were standing at the doorway, flirting with each other. It seemed they were already convinced of their victory, not even bothering to put up a pretense. Just as expected, I deliberately put on a dejected look, drawing the attention of many colleagues. Everyone's guesses were all over the place, but no one thought that I might have been removed from my position by the shareholders. Meeting. Chenemo said with a sarcastic tone, I've heard before that the shareholders are quite dissatisfied with Boss Chi. Could it be? The colleagues instantly erupted into an uproar. How could something like this happen? Under Chairman Chi's management, our company's output and profits have been rising year after year. What are these people on the board of directors thinking? How could they be dissatisfied with Chairman Chi? I glanced at Chenemo. Chenemo, where did you hear this news? Chenemo felt certain he had hit the mark, and his arrogance grew even more pronounced. What did you call me? I blinked. Chenemo, did you change your name or something? Chenemo refused to even look me in the eye. Before the shareholders meeting, if you called me Chenemo, I wouldn't hold it against you. Now that the shareholders meeting is over, what should you be calling me? Seeing his arrogant demeanor, the colleagues were all baffled. They looked at Lin Yu, expecting her to step in and say a few words on my behalf. After all, during this time, my wife has been playing the role of my loyal right hand. Unfortunately, Lin Yu merely turned her head away indifferently, without uttering a single word. At this moment, the system's favorability rating remained at 95 points. This was my system score before the shareholders meeting. If this had happened before, I would have definitely lowered the system's favorability due to Lin Yu's deliberate disregard. But this time, there seemed to be no reaction at all. This means that the system Lin Yu is bound to has already taken effect and will proceed to eliminate me. The shareholders meeting should have also voted to remove me from my position. At the same time, Chenemo, due to the relationship designated by the host Lin Yu, will become the next chairman. Therefore, the favorability score is frozen and will no longer change. Seeing this, Chenemo became even more arrogant. He patted me on the shoulder. Chisha, you're still young. Although being dismissed by the shareholders meeting is very embarrassing, you can't give up on life. Even if I can't be the chairman, there's no problem being a security guard. In his heart, I had no future at all. Someone marked for elimination by the system would soon die in an accident. Seeing how arrogantly he acted, his colleagues thought Chenemo had some inside information. I looked up at him and said, "What makes you so sure the shareholders meeting has removed me from my position?" At this point, Lin Yu finally couldn't hold it in anymore, because she maintained the persona of a noble and elegant woman at the company. She was too embarrassed to humiliate me in public, but privately, she was probably already gnashing her teeth in hatred toward me. Not only had I kept her apart from her beloved Chenemo for so long, but I also made all sorts of twisted demands to torment her. But all of that is in the past. Lin Yu said impatiently to me, "Are you annoying, or what? Since the shareholders meeting is over, just leave quickly. Don't hang around the company and disrupt our work." So eager to have me get hit by a car outside, I calmly took out a document. Notice on postponing the shareholders meeting of XXX Company Limited. Everyone was stunned, their mouths agape. The shareholders meeting has been postponed. In other words, there was no so-called shareholders meeting held today at all. Because I had leverage over all the shareholders, I forcibly postponed the shareholders meeting but demanded that they all show up today to play along with my act. Just now, all the shareholders were in the meeting room, but no meeting was actually held. Since the deadline for the final shareholders meeting has not yet arrived, the system bound to Lin Yu is still operating as usual. At this moment, Lin Yu came to her senses, but after sensing it several times, she confirmed that the system's affection value had not changed at all. In this life, in her eyes, I am a man who is naturally sensitive and suspicious. Given the current situation, how could the affection value remain unchanged? I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Are you wondering why it's always 95 points? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was utterly confused, except for Chenemo and Lin Yu, whose faces turned pale. I snapped my fingers. Warning. Target affection -10, current affection 85. Host. Please note, if affection drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. Warning. Target affection -10, current affection 75. Host. Please note, if affection drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. Warning. Target affection -10, Current affection 65. Host. Please note, if affection drops below 50, the penalty mechanism will be activated. One system notification after another rang out, and Lin Yu was so frightened that her legs went weak. She finally snapped out of it, raising her hand and tremblingly pointing at me. So you've known all along. I smiled and nodded, saying to myself, not all along, though. I once went through a lot of hardships. I didn't want to waste any more time, so I directly lowered the affection level to 0. This is also my truest feeling toward Lin Yu. Warning, current affection level 0. The host will be eliminated by the system. Lin Yu let out a terrified scream. She ran like crazy, bolting into her office and locking herself inside. Meanwhile, Chinamo was also thrown into a panic. Although the system was bound to Lin Yu, he was, after all, the designated beneficiary. If I am erased by the system, Chinamo will take my place. Seeing Lin Yu lock herself in the office, Chinamo had only one thought: to stay as far away from Lin Yu as possible. He immediately rushed out of the office building, planning to leave the company and hide. No matter what method the system uses to erase Lin Yu, as long as he stays far away from her, he will definitely be safe. I shook my head helplessly. So much for the love between that pair of scumbags. Before anyone could figure out what had happened, a loud crash was heard, and something fell from a great height. When everyone went downstairs to check, they found that Lin Yu had jumped from her office and died on impact. Beneath her twisted body lay Chimo, who had been trying to flee the company. His body was equally contorted, crushed beyond recognition by the immense impact. The two corpses were embracing each other in a grotesque pose. Many colleagues threw up on the spot. The police arrived at the scene quickly. After repeated investigations, the case was eventually closed as an accident. As for me, I continued to serve as the company's chairman, leading my employees toward a better life. Years later, the company had grown several times larger, and I had found true love. Occasionally, when I think back on Lin Yu and Chimo, I find myself somewhat grateful for the existence of that system. I will only cherish the wonderful life I have now even more.